Alright, good afternoon everybody. This is Dylan with the YZR report. And this is going to be your daily brief for September 14th, 2022. We got a few stories to get into today. The first is going to be the date that's been floating around a lot lately, which is at September 24th. Where that date came into play was actually from a German parliament meeting where a politician says everybody will remember where they will be on September 24th. We're going to go over that, and it was actually an error. If you read the official transcript, you'll see that he was actually talking about February 24th and that everybody remembers where they were when Ukraine was invaded. So we'll go over that, a couple stories verifying that. I believe that it's healthy that we get those dates out when we see them, but of course, if there's something that needs to be corrected, I find it absolutely important to go ahead and fix that if we discover later that there was an error of some type. So that's what we're going to talk about. We're also going to go over a Twitter account that's popped up recently, which forecasts the day that the Queen would be announced to have been deceased. They posted that back in the spring of earlier this year, and they pulled it off to the exact day. Since making that post and since the announcement of the Queen being deceased, that account's now posted a couple other important dates to look forward to this month. So we're going to go over that. We're going to talk about Biden regime and how they've been draining the strategic oil reserves to artificially lower the price of oil. Just short term, very temporary, of course. There's other factors in the global economic scene that, of course, would spoil his whole agenda of trying to lower prices by just simply draining strategic oil reserves. So we're going to go over that. We're going to go over the markets very briefly, since yesterday we spent some decent time going over the charts. So we're just going to briefly touch on that. Recap on what the CPI report has done to the markets over the last 48 hours since its release. A little less than 48 hours. You guys get what I mean, though. And then we're going to talk about how I believe the quarter three U.S. earnings reports, globally as well, it will truly be the nail in the coffin. Certainly so to the Biden regime's narrative that we're not in a recession. That will end that right there. If you guys have been following me, listening to what I have to say these last few weeks, you guys would know that I strongly believe that we're already in a recession. Biden regime altered the definition of what a technical recession is. Up until that alternative fact, if you will, alternative definition change, a technical recession is any time the country reports 2 consecutive quarters of negative GDP growth. And we've already done that. So we are technically in a recession. So we're going to talk about that as well. And we're going to wrap up with the cyber threat, and we'll also wrap up with the European Union energy day ahead prices, as we always do. So let's get right into it, guys. Starting right off, I want to cover that September 24th date. We're not going to listen to this whole video. I'm just going to briefly play it. You guys saw the footage. Maybe it'll recall in your memory what I'm talking about. So basically, the Germans were in parliament. Politicians stood up, talked about how the 24th was a day that he'll never forget. And it was misconstrued within the community that he was referring to the upcoming 24th of September, and that we'll all remember where we were when we saw that news. So if you read the official transcript, you guys will see that he was actually referring to when Ukraine was invaded. And he's not speaking in a future tense, but rather a past tense. So it just transcription error, it happens, but it's important that we get these dates out, but it's also important that we correct any errors that might have been made. So this has been floating around a lot lately, so I just want to fix the narrative on that. Another story going into it in more detail is going to be from the Washington Standard. German legislature, geez, I can't speak today, my apologies, guys. Warns of September 24th. Everyone will remember exactly where he or she was. So they do not have this fixed, although I haven't read through it with the updated, so they might have fixed this then. Let's just briefly touch the update. It seems clear that he misspoke about the date and meant to reference February 24th as the reference with the full speech at the bottom of the page, using closed caption translation into English. So there you guys have it right there. So definitely share this out in any article, video, anything I show you guys on these videos. They're going to be linked below in the description box so that you guys can verify that and also feel confident with sharing it and having a source to back that up with. But it was a crucial error. Everybody got hyped up, but at least it was corrected relatively fast. Moving right over to the next. Now this is intriguing. I only stumbled across this account after this tweet was posted. I After the Queen had been announced. I did not follow this back in February 4th, but it came across my radar on September 8th. So we see here on September 4th of this year that the account of, now I'm not sure how this is supposed to be pronounced. We're just going to butcher it. Adam Leoxide. Queen Elizabeth II will die on September 8th, 2022. And again, this was posted February 4th, 2022. Nailed it. So, of course, everyone's been following this mate, just seeing what gets posted. A lot of interesting stuff throughout the spring of 2021. And my apologies. It actually looks like the post about the Queen was posted in 2021. Because if we scroll up here, we can see... Oh, no, my apologies. I am misreading. It's just the date, February 21. I was going to say, wow, 2 years in advance, right? But interesting numbers, things that don't make sense right off the bat, obviously at face value. Talking about where are the Orcanians, interesting. But if we scroll up to a more recent, since he nailed the September 8th announcement, let's scroll all the way up here. It appears that this account will be making an announcement revealing on Friday, September 16th, 2022 at 11 a.m. Central Time. Some important information. It goes into alien races, so it gets a little conspiratorial, if you will, for lack of a better word, but certainly something to look into and follow along. Yeah, so here it is. This Friday, September 16th, 2022 at 11 a.m. Central Time, I will be broadcasting a remarkable video in which the world will finally be introduced to an advanced alien species known as the Orcanians. Interesting. Something to just take note of since they were accurate previous. There's another post in here talking about how this individual has the ability to forecast, and they credit that ability to simply having a technological advantage. We'll see how this develops, right? There's one more post in here I found interesting. Here we are. A major world announcement will be made impacting a former U.S. president on November 18th, 2022. Something to follow along, right? So I attached this Twitter account down below in the description box so that you guys can keep up with it as well. Some kind of anomaly, something to keep up with. Now let's hop over to the oil reserves and the Biden regime draining us out. So this is actually an article from Zero Hedge back from July 26th of this year, and they're stating the ominous selling of 20 million barrels of oil from the strategic reserve just before the midterms. Now it makes sense that we have the midterms coming up. Biden regime, Democrats are not holding so well, obviously. So it makes sense that they're going to try anything that they can to try and sway a vote, right? But again, this is back from the 26th, and you can see a chart here of how that was being drained. So we actually dropped under the 0.5 million barrel mark there. So if we look at a current, this is my Twitter account. It's a sister Twitter account of mine, OSINT Trading. Feel free to follow it. We focus more on economic and crypto, blockchain technology news, more around that topic there. But what I have here is a Bloomberg terminal chart showing more present, up to date yesterday, strategic petroleum reserve, and just seeing how much the total inventory has dropped off. So inflation would be double digits today, but Biden is actively draining the strategic oil reserves to artificially reduce the price of oil. Joe is sacrificing American energy security in a desperate attempt to save the regime. I mean, it's spot on. And this is tragic. They have been buying some back. As they sell, they do buy some back. We haven't seen any large buybacks as of recent, more so in the early summer of this year and the spring, but nothing to correct this. I mean, here's the chart right here. You can see that it's very, very rarely do we get a spike back up. Anything they are buying back doesn't alter the overall trend, which is obviously down, waterfall down, really. So something alarming and something to take note of. We touched on the charts yesterday quite a bit, so I'm just going to briefly run over them. We're going to look at the dollar on a daily chart. You can see here that we have managed to get just above where I said we really want to pull back here. So that's about 109.77. We're currently just above that. I would like to see this pull back. And if we're looking at the relative strength index, you can see that we're consistently making lower highs. We managed to make a higher high here, But the overall trend is that we are making lower highs, followed by right here. So what I'd like to see is a larger pullback initially, at least down to the base of this demand zone, which is this blue rectangle you guys are seeing here. It would bring us back down to a fib support, which is at 106.61. But then we also have a range EQ, which is the midline point of the range top and the range bottom, with two demand zones layered in between. But here's your EQ. So if we do get that larger pullback, I would look for the 50 EMA, which is this yellow line, to hold. If it doesn't hold, then we're going to target the EQ. We lose the EQ, then obviously we're targeting range low and the demand zone. 200 EMA is massive. I wouldn't expect us to lose this trend of 200 EMA, meaning that we'll likely pull back and then get a bounce on this ascending diagonal, which is exponential moving average on the 200-day. Let's look over at the 10-year yields real quick. Just touch on those on a daily again. We managed to flip that level here. And we're holding above it, testing it as support, and kind of ranging in between these two. Now our local top is back from June 14th, and that was at 3.499%, and we're just under that. We're at 3.419%. So markets aren't going to like this. Bonds going up, whether it's the 10-year, the 30-year, anything in between there. Markets are not going to like that, and we're seeing a heavy pullback on most assets there. Whether it's equities, commodities, of course, are going to pull back because they're priced with the dollar. If the dollar's going up, commodities are going to see a negative impact there of downtrend. So if we do manage to flip this top, it's over for the market. This is the debt market we're looking at here. I've talked about this like a broken record in every video, that the debt market will be the absolute end all if we don't see a catalyst outside of financial collapse usher in the house of cards totally plummeting, right? But if we do get the pullback, generally down to this demand zone would be our first target. Then we'd be eyeing the 50 EMA, and then we have a midline point here of about 3%, roughly 3% ballpark. We lose that, then of course we're going to be targeting down below, and we'll keep up to date with this with each briefing. Let's go over one more technical. S&P. We talked about this yesterday and how I expected us to come down to this diagonal, and we'll see if we get a reaction there since it pairs well with this Fibonacci level as well as the diagonal support. So we should see a reaction bounce here. If not, then we target the demand zone. Let's look at Bitcoin just real quick on a daily. We're still in that range. We've been in that range. It's not going to change until we pop out of the range. So obviously we lost the EQ. We're targeting range low. Until we lose this range low, I would expect a bounce then, and easy trading on a higher time frame viewpoint here, in my opinion, with most assets. It's been nice this week, to be honest with you guys, in my opinion. Yeah, it's been down, but if you're shorting this and you've been watching these videos, you guys should be profiting pretty well. Always use risk management, position size appropriately. Leverage can hurt you. It could also build that portfolio up greatly. So just risk management in these conditions, right, guys? And turn off the news. If you guys are watching CNN, NBC, or anything, counter trade them if you are watching it, obviously. Hopefully you guys have figured that out. But moving right along, I just have this pulled up. We're not going to go into the earnings calendar, but I have this saved as a mental tab for myself, that as much as Biden regime and the Federal Reserve and central banks all around the world are trying to tell us that it's going to be okay, we're not in a recession, that inflation is transitory, all these, in my opinion, psycho pipe dreams that are just misleading the general public into their coffin. At the end of the day, when we get the Q3 earnings report coming in for this year, it's the nail in the coffin. It's gonna show everybody that their whole facade is a facade, and it has nothing holding it up. And at that point, we'll see a lot of economic change, which we're already going through. We're seeing mass inflation come in. The Fed will never have that under control, nor do they want to have it under control. If they wanted to have it under control, they would. They would, and we're not seeing it. They're doing rate hikes far behind what inflation's at. They should have been doing 100 basis point hikes back in Q1 just to get ahead of inflation, or try to not even get ahead, but pair with it. At the end of the day, they are not here to save us. They are inviting inflation. This has been the long-term agenda. for the last almost going on 3.5 years now. Much further than that, but heavily so since we saw the overnight reverse repo collapse in 2019. So then they printed a bunch of money under the guise of COVID relief, which just invites inflation, invites a hyper stagflation environment, which we've been in for quite some time. As always, let's go ahead and just look at the cyber threat map. We didn't cover it yesterday, my apologies, but we're going to look at it today. Of course, a lot of input coming into the United States, and that's not to say that we're not outputting any attacks either. We are absolutely outputting attacks, but the inbound attacks and infection are rather large, and this has been ever increasing. So if you're noticing your internet speed slowing down, download speed, any applications running on Amazon Web Service, AWS, slowing down, this is likely going to be your root cause, and I would expect that we do not see this slow down, but actually ramp up given global conflict events, inflation, proxy war going on, everything under that nature. But we're just getting pelted, right? Eurozone getting pelted, a lot of this coming out from China, a lot from the Mediterranean here, but that's where we are cyber threat wise. Let's go ahead and jump on to the day ahead electricity prices for the Eurozone. A little bit of relief today, a little bit, not a lot. I mean, these numbers are still insane. Remember, these are priced in euros per megawatt, so we're looking at 390 in Austria, but it's down 13% since yesterday. So we are seeing some pullbacks here. Perhaps this is because of some Russian Gazprom news that I just simply haven't come across my board yet. But we are seeing a pullback, and markets don't go straight up. Markets don't go straight down. We see cycles, and this is what we're in right now. But if we look at Estonia here, up 60% day over day. Yeah, it's one of the lower at 150 euro compared to some of these nearing almost 400, 450, etc. But up 32% in Spain. Finland's getting a 36. But overall, we are seeing a bit of a pullback. So that's good for them, but again, it's going to continue to go up. It will continue to go up, and energy rationing will begin, not just in the Eurozone. Technically, it has already began, and legislatively, they are already beginning to pass a protocol and policy for energy rationing, and the European Union's calling for rationing, of course. Ursula von, I can't pronounce her last, and it slips my tongue at the moment, but she's pushing for it hard. We will see this come into the States and us other Western nations as well. But that's where we are today, guys. It's only Wednesday. We still have a few more days to go in this week. I'm sure things will ramp up as they always do. But be safe. Get prepared. Get that money out of the banks. Remember, your paper dollars are only candy wrappers. They're not backed by anything. They haven't been backed by anything for a long time. All we have to do is look through monetary history to see where the story is going to end. So get on it, because we are running out of time, guys. So get prepared. Get yourself a generator. Check out Insolar, or Energy. My apologies, not Insolar, but Energy with an I. Check that out. It's a solar powered generator. Emits no fumes, so you can run it in your house, and it's absolutely silent. Be picking up some extra food at the grocery stores. Order your silver while you can now, because we're going to see... I don't want to go off on a tangent on this, but I do want to make a point of it. What we usually see when the royal family goes through a new monarch, we usually see them pull back much of the circulating silver bullions, and they restamp those, right? Because right now everything out there is going to have the queen on them. Not to say that they're going to pull everything off the market or anything like that, but they will do a callback to issue new silver bullions with the king, or whatever they choose to print onto that. So we're already in a short supply of silver globally as is, and then you get something like this happening in the UK, where they're going to be calling back in some silver, maybe doing a buyback for a higher premium to the seller, things like that. So get on the silver now, because at the end of the day, who knows when we're just not going to be able to get this stuff. So get on that. But I love you guys. Happy Wednesday. I will be back tomorrow with another daily brief. But stay true. That's all I can say. I will see you guys tomorrow.